the purchasing power of the dollar has been going down for about 50 years. There's another data point that's also very important, which is the growth of e-commerce brands has, by some sources, doubled just in the last 5 years. So you need to focus first and foremost on what is the actual customer experience.
There's no tricking customers today. Unpack the fabric of any brand. They obsess over the relationship they have with the customer. They obsess over the product. That's what makes them great.
Communicate across the business how they're using AI. Most companies are probably between like 50 and 75%.
Being willing to look at those customer insights and actually hear that maybe there is a product problem. And it's not just, no, it's a marketing problem.
Still don't hear people talk about enough in the world of commerce is how this actually changes how consumers shop.
Well, thanks everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Brilliant Commerce Podcast. This time, once again, in real life. This is my favorite way of doing this. On the Brilliant Commerce Podcast, I get a chance to sit down with people who are working behind the scenes at iconic brands, or as I like to say, next to be iconic brands. Today, I'm joined by Justin Fredlender, who has for his entire career been behind the scenes at some of these iconic brands, most recently at Ritual, and now acting as an independent consultant for a number of brands. Justin, welcome to the pod.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Before we dive in, maybe give us a 2-minute overview on you, your career, how you've come up through the ranks. We talked about it a little bit in the green room, and I thought it was super fascinating.
Yeah, so started my career in the realm of management consulting, and did that for about 2 years. And what I found during that time is that there wasn't a whole lot of critical thinking involved in that career path for me, at least like early on in the career, right? And so I really wanted to branch out into something that allowed me to utilize some real like critical thinking skills. And so I had no idea what that was going to be. And so I kind of just started going online, looking for job opportunities, and came across a job rec for what was like a growth analyst.
Okay.
Right. And this growth analyst job rec, I remember specifically, could have applied to almost any industry. It could have been e-commerce, it could have been tech, could have been a whole multitude of things. But what really intrigued me was the day-to-day of the job, which was, analyzing big data sets and coming up with recommendations for growth or consumer journeys or whatever it might be. But leveraging data and leveraging an understanding of data to drive some decision-making, right?
And how far back is that? Like that's 2013, 2014, or even earlier than that?
That was so graduated college 2013.
Okay.
That was 2015, where I kind of wanted to make the move out of consulting. That was 2 years.
So we're just getting started with even brands having access to big data for someone to come in and be a growth analyst on. Is that sort of fair to say?
Yeah, and it was back in the day when MTAs were big, Convertro was big, and as you know, like none of those technologies, a few of them really exist anymore.
Yeah.
By luck of the draw, got that job and loved it. And that company, the first company that I joined in e-commerce, was kind of golden company in the space at the time, had a quick rise and fall, and joined a company called Movement, which was, a watch and fashion accessory brand. And for, the listeners who aren't innately familiar with that company, was just one of the early, like really D2C successes.
Yeah.
So it was about 25 when I joined that company. And, everyone at the company at that time was about 25 years old,
okay.
Right? So like we were all 25, figuring it out, testing and learning, and just honestly having like a ton of fun doing it. Scaled that business up to almost 9 figures, exited. And then from there, I found myself over at Ritual, where I was leading, the growth org and much of the direct consumer business. Was there for about 5 years, was an incredible journey in terms of working with some of the smartest people in the space, and really like makes you really understand that the success of, some of the biggest companies in the D2C space is not dependent on how, you evaluate clicks and optimize CPCs. You're selling a product at the end of the day, and you need a team across many facets of the business that is able to execute incredibly well on specific strategic initiatives to like really break through and drive that growth. So anyway, for about the last year and a half, as you mentioned, I've kind of been doing the independent consulting thing, advisory thing, and honestly just been having a great time. Whereas, I think we were talking about this, back in the green room, but when you're working with one brand, you could have a fairly siloed way of thinking because a few things work and maybe it works well for your brand. And so that's kind of, where you spend a lot of your time. But going out and actually working with a multitude of brands across many verticals, across many different sizes and areas of scale, for me, has over the past year and a half, has really like accelerated my own learning and just allowed me to be even better at what I do.
Yeah, it sort of widens the aperture of the sort of like the types of problems, even though like commerce is a quote unquote solved problem. I think that's like, once you actually get in, I think it's always been sort of laughable. But that's sort of like a fascinating journey. And I'll bring it back to Ritual for a sec, because I know you spent sort of 5 years there. And as I think about what it means to be like a trusted brand or an iconic brand, there's like sort of a relationship that you have with your customer, and especially a brand that is selling a product that you're going to put on your body, or in Ritual's case, sort of in your body. And you were really focused on growth, and I think probably retention as well, because if I remember correctly, there was a big subscription component there. But can you talk to me a little bit about maybe how data was used within Ritual to create like that really solid brand foundation? Like, why does someone see a Ritual ad, believe that that is the right product for them? And then how were you helping maybe the brand teams or the marketing team sort of strengthen that relationship to keep people coming back and keep that trust that I'm going to put that product in my body?
So first of all, the brand positioning and the overall foundation of the brand was put in place far before I ever got there. Kat, founder, had a vision for a product based on like her own personal experience in life. She executed on it. And then I think as the team grew, we were able to really create a brand positioning and brand perspective that was really powerful. All that said, so when I joined the company, that brand foundation already existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what they were missing at the brand was somebody who had my background and skill set. So somebody who was more data driven.
Okay.
And so I'll kind of just even pull it back and kind of give you like one of the first success stories that I had personally, like during my time over at Ritual, which is, within the first few months of joining the brand, it became very apparent that, the marketing creative was fantastic. The brand positioning was on point, but they were just purely investing in the wrong areas of their marketing stack. And I'll kind of bring this back to retention in a minute. But on the customer acquisition side, it was purely like, hey, let's just spend more on the channels that are actually working if you look at attribution the right way.
Yeah.
And let's see if we could accelerate some growth. I think when you join a company and you find a quick win, it helps you to build trust within the organization.
Sure.
And that to me was kind of like the first quick win, where we kind of just reoriented how we were spending our marketing dollars, and we found some accelerated growth fairly quickly, which was, sweat off my brow.
Yeah, it's nice to get those quick wins.
It's always nice to get a quick win. And so, now relating this back to, the retention side of things. So I want to kind of like separate out the tactical side of retention to the customer love of your brand side of retention, because of course, having a subscription product is going to increase your retention, or, the way that you segment your email list is going to increase your repurchase rate and how customers come back to the business. But you could do all of those things well. And if people don't like the product, then they're simply not going to come back and purchase. And I kind of want to point to two specific data points that have kind of developed. They've been developing over a long period of time, but specifically, the last 5 years, it's been exacerbated by the pandemic. And that one, the first data point is like the purchasing power of the dollar has been going down for about 50 years.
Yeah.
So more money is being spent on the needs like housing and food. And there's less money that's actually spent on discretionary purchases, like an expensive multivitamin or many of the products that we sell.
The high consideration purchases, that the barrier to convert is higher than ever before.
Correct. There's another data point that's also very important, which is the growth of e-commerce brands has, by some sources, doubled just in the last 5 years. There's over 100,000
just brands,
digitally native e-commerce brands just operating in the US alone.
Yeah.
And so if you kind of put those two data points together, consumers have never had so much decision, like so many opportunities to make a decision on the products they want to purchase. And they're also going to be hypercritical of the products they purchase after they receive them.
Right.
So you need to focus first and foremost on what is the actual customer experience. And are you delivering an experience that exceeds expectations and that is better than anyone else in the market? That is how you're going to drive retention.
Yeah.
And then comes all the tactical stuff. Then you layer on the tactical stuff.
Right.
But it has to start with
you can't
best
earn the
practice.
right to layer on the tactical stuff if you don't have that foundation right. Like you have to deliver on that promise. Like customers are going to be more exacting than demanding than ever before.
100%.
Switching costs are almost nothing because you're getting served these ads all the time. Like, sure, I'll try this. And especially with what I think as an industry, what we've decided to do with these first purchase discounts is we're almost incentivizing the switch. You must have to think about it in your model. Like, I know I'm going to acquire a customer for a certain amount, but like, man, I really got to get to work in retaining them because I know they're going to get inundated with offers from a competing product where they're going to basically give the first product away for free. And then the retention game starts over there. And so how do we make sure that the hard-earned dollars or the hard-spent dollars that we spend getting that customer into our funnel and all the way across the line, that we keep them in there? And like, that's just, that's a really tough challenge.
And the other, just to expand on that, I think the reduction in the barriers to entry to open up an online store is part of, and by the way, that's, kudos to Shopify for making it so easy. Kudos to all the contract manufacturers out there who are reducing their own friction in their funnels, right? To allow for folks to be entrepreneurs and open up their own stores. That being said, it feels like oftentimes many entrepreneurs focus too much on, hey, I've heard this was easy, so let me just start a brand. Right. And they don't think about the incredibly fine details that it actually takes to win in a market that will continue to be more competitive, has become wildly competitive. And again, like going back to the consumer, hard-earned dollars, less of them to spend. Where am I going to spend them, and why do I spend them with your company?
There's nothing easy about creating a brand, despite some of the hero stories that we see, the in theory overnight successes. I think if you unpack the fabric of any brand that you interact with today, or that you buy, that you put on your body, that you want to be friends with, like they obsess over the relationship they have with the customer. They obsess over the product. And like, that's what makes them great. It's not their ability to launch the buzziest marketing campaign. There's no tricking customers today. You might trick them into making that first purchase, but they're not going to make a second purchase. And they're probably going to tell 5 people that they felt like they were tricked. Whereas if you get those fundamentals right, I think, like deliver an amazing service, deliver an amazing product, then you can start turning those people into advocates. And and I think that's the other thing that I remember in 2015, like through 2018, because there were a lot of venture dollars flowing out there for brands. It was easy to really kind of focus on acquisition. It was kind of like a drug to some extent. And perhaps there was an underinvestment in how do we use those excellent relationships we have with our best customers to help go and fetch other customers. There's maybe a little bit more work to do that. But when I always used to look at that data, customers that would come in through that funnel, through like Justin saying like, I had an amazing experience with Ritual, then my friend's more willing to trust me, and perhaps more difficult to measure. But I thought always like a more durable customer if I would like run them through an RFM model and understand like where they would come from. I'm like, well, I want to go create more experiences like that. But there was less immediacy, perhaps, or this is my hypothesis, than just cranking the lever on Meta or sort of on Google. So maybe kind of like a hard segue into kind of strategy. Like, how have you seen that landscape change over time from going all the way back to 2015, where you said you were like testing and learning and acquiring and retaining, where you had the benefit of walking in with a really solid brand platform, to what brands have to do today to cut through and to go and like find that next customer, because there are fewer venture dollars that are flowing around that just allow us to spend without an awful lot of thought to sort of see what's working. So, and I would imagine that's an awful lot of the reason why people are singling you out to be like, yeah, we tried all these things. We were told it's easy. We're figuring out it's maybe not so easy. So, how can we stand on the shoulders of those that have been there before, but don't necessarily have a playbook, but that are thoughtful and, can get in there and help get them to that next level. So yeah, like take us back and how it's evolved over time and, what you would advise brands today.
Today, when I think about the world of growth, of course, is tactical. But this even goes back to, what we were talking about before. You have to lay the foundation to be able to do the tactical things with just a great product and service and an eye on like the customer experience. And I think this is like the old adage over at Amazon, which is like, customer. Yeah. What is the experience? And so what I've inherently found in now working with, a multitude of brands is that many of them got up and running easily because there's low barriers to entry. Many of them found success for one reason or another, whether it's great branding or great product market fit or the ability to operate well. There's something that allowed them to find that initial like push into, finding some success. But what I'm finding a lot now is that a lot of the foundational work has not already been done. I think, going back to Ritual, I think that was a very unique case where I think the brand work, and don't get me wrong, that evolved over time, but that was already foundational by the time I got there, where with a lot of the brands that I am working with now, they've found a little success and then they kind of got to work backwards a little bit. And what we do is we work together and say, okay, looking at the data, like what are your repurchase rates? Okay, they're not where they should be. Why is that? Is it because, they don't love the product? Is it because of operate? Like you gotta peel back from there. And that's actually where I think like the holistic lens of growth comes into play, is because I think that too many entrepreneurs and like CEOs see customer acquisition go down and they say, marketing, like what's going on? And the fact of the matter is like, there could absolutely be something going on from a marketing perspective. But it all plays together. Yeah. And so I now take this viewpoint that growth is holistic. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to work across brand. You have to be able to work across operations. You have to be able to work across product, actually like R&D, like who's creating the product. And a big one, which I actually think that, a lot of brands kind of dabble into, but maybe, not to the level that they should, is consumer insights. Yeah. And consumer insights, over the course of, the last 5 to 7 years for me, has allowed me to like really think about in a very targeted way the tests that we want to run and what needs to be improved. Yeah. Things that you can't uncover just by looking at Shopify data. Right. And so, I think that's how really things have evolved over time. Is it's less, hey, the things that are easy for me, like going to a spreadsheet and understanding, the trends of data, like it is much more holistic, and you really do need to work across an entire company to make sure that you're driving efficient metrics. Yeah. And like, I think the Amazon, the customer is really important here, because I think like that now it starts to speak to the fabric of the culture within the organization, like being willing to look at those customer insights and actually hear that maybe there is a product problem. And it's not just, no, it's a marketing problem, or it was this campaign problem. Like, no, we actually have a problem in the way that this product is being received in the hands of our customers that have trusted us. They liked our message, but like, we got to make that better. Or maybe it's taking too long to get the package to them. Like, we have to be willing to hear what our customer is telling us and then do the hard work from there. And I think if you have a product, I think a lot of these great brands, especially the ones that are digitally native with a founder that had a vision, is like they're obsessing over a category, they're obsessing over a product. Yeah. They have an unfair advantage versus maybe a brand that saw an arbitrage opportunity. And arbitrage is the thing that they're passionate about, less so like, I'm going to solve this. I built this product or I built this company because I couldn't find anything like that for me. Yep. I think that's really important. So, and it sounds like, Ritual and Movement before that had an awful lot of those characteristics. I sort of thematically hearing you talk about like where you got started and where you've come from and now kind of where you're going, there's like a natural cycle to that, kind of like an arc. You're going back to consulting. I think about sort of cycles in tech as well. So, when you got started in 2015, we were, if I remember, I'm quite a bit older than you, there was a cycle before that where if you were, even before we called it digitally native, it was sort of like this e-commerce was shifting out of catalog commerce. There wasn't Shopify wasn't a viable option. You didn't have an awful lot of the tools that brands today like have at their disposal. So you built a lot.
You basically like built all of this own technology. It was homegrown. I still work with brands today that have like technology that they built 15, 20 years ago that's like still working for them. And I think the era that you really started to make a mark in your career was an era where we started to shift away from building everything to buying everything. And now it feels like we're coming full circle again, a new cycle where brands are sort of build curious again because of AI. So putting your advisor hat back on and having been through this over the last 10 years, the build versus buy, what opinions or what advice might you have for a brand today that is looking for consumer insights or is looking to expand beyond just what the Shopify dashboards are telling them? Like, how do they get started?
Great question. And I think it's such a company by company, like the answer is different on a company by company basis. And, when I think about the opportunity to build versus buy, two immediate things come to mind. One is, do we have the capability to build it?
Yeah.
Right. And even if you're talking about an AI prompt that would build you some function within an organization that would make you more efficient or solve some sort of problem, the question then really becomes like, okay, like if you have the capabilities, is somebody out there doing it even better, and can you find that product for
and
them?
Will they keep making it better?
Correct. And so, I think when the smaller brands that I do work with, they generally don't have the capabilities on the AI side to be able to prompt an LLM or some sort of AI model to build them a solution that would be a viable option. And so that's where there are a lot of solutions that are popping up who are taking advantage of AI, and Chord comes to mind. And I'll kind of share a story of how we recently onboarded Chord with a company that I'm working with, specifically because of this problem that that we were thinking build versus buy, and it was a very apparent solution for us. So anyway, I think like the answer to your initial question is it's on a very case by case basis, and it depends on the capabilities of the people internally and also their bandwidth to be able to actually build those tools.
Yeah.
Now, the example that I want to give where we kind of just went through the build versus buy and actually ended up onboarding Chord is a company that I work with has recently surpassed the size where it made sense for us to build a centralized database. Kudos to them. It was a long time coming. We've been working together for over a year, and kind of like one of those proud moments where it's like, all right, like
we've graduated. We're ready.
We're growing up.
Yeah.
We're growing up.
Yeah.
And so as we started evaluating analytics options, I think one thing that was really important for me, again, coming from somebody who is inherently very analytical, is that we had the ability to take our data and be flexible. And there's a lot of solutions out there that kind of just ingest data from, Meta or Shopify, but they're not very flexible, and they kind of give you out of the box dashboards, and really the value that they provide is not all that great. And so my initial thought went to, okay, well, we need to build this because we need the flexibility.
You don't want to be put in a box.
Correct.
Yeah.
We need to build a solution that works for us, not that you nailed it. Like, not something that works 75% for everyone. We need something that works 100% well for us.
Yeah.
And so as we started to explore options, it became very apparent to me that, with the advancement of AI and how AI is being integrated specifically into analytics platforms, we were just about to build a bunch of tech debt.
Yeah.
Because we were going to build this internal database. And even now you could prompt your own data sets, right? And so imagine what it's going to be in 6 months and 12 months and in 18, 24 months. And so serendipitously, I think you reached out like at that exact time. And I'm like,
everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And here we are on a podcast together. As we kind of went through the solution, this specific solution, which, this is prototypical build versus buy. Like, can we build this ourselves? If we ran the numbers, it would be way more expensive. We were going to build some tech debt. And so those are all of the considerations that you need to put in place when you're thinking build versus buy, is like, okay, if you're going to build it, does it become obsolete? in 6 to 12 months? Do you have not only the ability to build it, but also maintain it?
This is the thing. This is what thing that no one talks about is like that hidden cost. Like, can you build it? Building's fun.
Yeah.
You're prompting, code is being written. You're like, holy moly, I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
But then you've got to find a place to deploy it. You've got to maintain it. You got to make it better. And so I love people being excited about building things. I think it's really cool. But then there's a little bit of, I've seen this act before. And if you build it, you're going to have to maintain it. And now you run the risk of like, is there something better out there? Is there something that is getting better out there that we need to look at? But sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I love that. Like, man, it's like, it takes some experience to know that it's not always as easy as it seems.
Definitely. And I'll even go one step further. It's not just maintaining it. It's even finding a steward to own it within the organization.
Yeah.
And even with onboarding Chord, as an independent consultant, it was even hard to figure out in my own head, okay, who is the internal steward for making sure that the investment in this platform is actually going to pay back? So in a way where we're utilizing the data to make decisions where the investment is worthwhile. And so that if that in itself is a hard question to answer, then, building it yourself and then also having the steward and then also maintaining that technology, that's almost a non-starter to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like over the years, I've tried to develop this like analogy of how can you get something that's out of the box? Because the promise of just out of the box is really tempting, but I don't want to be put into the box. Like, am I willing to take something that works really well, but I get 75% of what I want? And so like I think the right way of looking at it is, can I get something out of the box where that box, I don't get boxed in?
Yeah.
Where I can get like 80% really quickly, but then I can extend it with the capabilities that I have in the organization that are the same capabilities that maybe could have built it from 0 to 80, but definitely have the capabilities to take it from 80 to 100.
Yep.
And I think the challenge for companies like my company will be, how do I go from 80 to 90? How do like, I don't ever want to pretend that I can do 100% of what all of the different brands might want to use the platform for, but I'd love to get to a place where we can do 90, where we make the last 10% like really fun and easy, where people feel like they're building on top of it. I tend to think that's where we're going. I've been trying to answer the build versus buy question as like, actually it's buy then build. And if you can't build around it, to me, that's a smell. That means you're buying a legacy platform that doesn't have APIs, that is super closed, that is going to be a pain in the ass, frankly, to work with. And if you can buy something that you can build around, like that starts to feel modern to me. And I want to encourage more and more people to move in that direction. Because be curious, like build with AI, but be really careful about the decision to take it all on your shoulders. And just because you can build it and launch it, to your point, do we have a steward within the organization to be the champion for it and to maintain it? Because there's costs there too.
Definitely. And the last thing I'll say on the topic is, if you're tasking somebody internally, let's say you have a bunch of redundancy at the organization, which I think really over the last 3 to 4 years, most companies have tried to reduce as much redundancy as possible. That means that if you're going to do a build, there either needs to be a dedicated resource or somebody is going to be doing it off the side of their desk.
Yeah.
And if they're doing it off the side of their desk, you have to ask yourself the question of, do they actually have the bandwidth to maintain the system or whatever it is that they have built? Or is it going to be forgotten and then just becomes a waste of cost?
I mean, I bring it back to like why do brands get created in the first place? Is it to build commerce infrastructure? Or like, can I take that side of the desk time and can I invest it in customer facing features that might allow me to dive into insights or react to those insights and sort of bring me closer to the customer? So I think there's kind of a tension there. I'll try to steer us, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but maybe more in the direction of AI, because I think there's an awful lot of, it's brand new and there's an awful lot that we can learn. There's obviously a ton of power there, but I think that there's still an awful lot of kind of like uncertainty or even misunderstanding about how we might interface with an LLM. And for someone that does have an analytical background and proximity to data stacks as well, I'll share this anecdote with you. I was on a kind of a discovery call yesterday with a data leader at a massive organization. They were digitally native and now they're like well into the 10 figures of revenue. And we were talking about sort of build versus buy and this company clearly has the capabilities to build everything internally if they want, like very, very profitable. Their decision, and they're still evaluating it, to build an AI solution to get more out of their data is because they don't want to give the data away. They don't want to give the data to the LLMs. So I think like theoretically or principally, they're right. But to me, there is sort of like a misunderstanding as to, like, as a technologist, how we might want to leverage AI, where I do want to keep our data safe. I don't want members of my team downloading PII and uploading it to ChatGPT and asking it to be summarized. Like, that to me is dangerous. You shouldn't do that. But there are ways to build context, to build frameworks, to be able to ask the LLMs to help write me better SQL so I can get answers faster without giving data away. And so I think that there's an awful lot of opportunity for us as tech leaders in the space to be able to evangelize an approach to keeping data safe, keeping customer data safe, but still not forcing yourself into this, perhaps the wrong path of building it all yourself in the service of sort of data safety. So just be curious, across all of your different brands, how you're seeing them use AI.
Yeah.
Are you seeing efficiencies being unlocked? Are you seeing an awful lot of promise where they end up stubbing their toes and sort of like putting it in the top drawer for now? Like, you get to work with a number of these brands. I'd just be sort of like really curious, where do you think most of these brands are on that AI adoption curve?
I think for the most part, everyone is adopting AI. Like, that is a no doubter. And I think pretty much everyone is, unless you're at a much larger brand who has an internal resource, whether it is a dedicated AI resource or just someone who's really passionate about AI who can then, communicate across the business how they're using AI. Most companies are probably between like 50 and 75%.
Okay.
They're using it.
Yeah.
But are they using it to the 100%? No. But are they not using it all? No. It's generally somewhere in between. In some functions, it's more evolved than in others. Data is a great example because I think data is something that LLMs just inherently do well, right? They analyze things and then they come back with their own point of view and at least help you get, 75% of the way to the answer that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Is it
much faster than without it?
Not only that, but also, there are generally very few power users of BI tools within an organization. And this is another struggle that we were talking about. I think it was either earlier this week or last week, which is, we want, and, there's an example where, there is a resource in one of the companies who I work with who is overseeing a function that probably should be like very data proficient. It's just not where they want to spend their time. It's not what they're passionate about. And so asking them to mine data in a platform like Looker or within Chord is a really tall ask.
Yeah.
But if you just say, hey, prompt it.
Yeah.
And, get 75% of what you're looking for, and then, hey, come to me and I'll kind of help you get the rest. That is a much easier ask. So I would say
becomes a more natural workflow.
A way more natural workflow. And you can make more users within a company a power user of a data platform, or at least, a semi-power user of a data platform than ever before.
Yeah.
Now, I want to revert back to that's because that's on the analytics side.
I love that though. That's like a really powerful way that you should be thinking about using AI today is like you can create more data power users than ever before. And if you think about like being on the data side, and I am still on the data side, but we would spend all of this time setting up these beautiful Looker dashboards. And then I would see these questions come into Slack and it would break my heart.
Yeah.
It's like, there's a dashboard for that. And we democratize access to data. Why don't you just go and look at it? And I kept banging my head against the wall before finally realizing that, yes, the data is there. And yes, we made it available to them, but there's something about it that's too hard. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of human nature. So instead of looking at it, they just ask the question. And they ask the question in Slack, or they ask the question over email, or they shout it across the room. That's what's happened. And I think it has pulled the data teams from the rest of their business teams apart because they're like, we did all this work, use my work. But to what you're talking about now, if you do all that work and you have this trustworthy data foundation, and now we can start introducing more of a conversational interface, which is what they were doing anyhow, just answering the question in Slack. But if that answer can come back and it's, to your point, 75% of the way there, well, now we can have a more robust conversation, because now I'm actually I'm asking the analyst to do the work the analyst has always wanted to do, which is like the third level down question. I want to go and find that insight, these things that I can move the business forward with. Like that, to me, we're right there now. And I want to see more of that happening within organizations. And I'm willing to let go like the hard work that we've done forever of like building beautiful dashboards and saying you can self-serve, because I do think traditional BI is broken. I think it is too hard. And I'm really excited about what AI can do to have more conversations in organizations around the data.
Yeah. And I think, specifically within the realm of analytics and data, I think, AI is probably further along than in some other areas, right? If I'm kind of thinking AI within an organization, right? Like within, specifically in our case, like a commerce or an e-commerce organization. Yes, you have analytics, but then you also have the ability to leverage AI to do something like creative.
Yeah.
And that's where I actually think there's been awesome advancements, but I think AI from a creative perspective is not where AI is from a data perspective, because the capabilities of an LLM, from what I understand about LLMs, lend itself better to analyzing data sets than it would be to like creating content that a CEO or founder or whoever
would feel good about putting it into the world.
That's exactly right. And so what you actually, where within the analytics side of things, you're creating more semi-power users.
Yeah.
Right. And I actually think that in the next 6 to 12 months, they will be just straight up power users.
Yeah.
As AI advances. But I would say on the creative side, what you're actually now doing is you're probably enabling like a team.
Yeah.
A creative team. You're not like, yes, of course, like your media buyer can maybe create some ads, but if they put those ads in front of, the CMO or someone or an executive who's approving the creative, they're probably going to get a lot of pushback on whatever they've produced. Whereas if you put an AI tool in the hand of a creative who actually understands, like, has this vision of like what they're actually trying to produce, that will actually probably pass the sniff test.
Yeah.
And so, I think that there's areas of AI that enable an entire organization and in your case, like democratize data. But I also think that there's areas of AI that are just enabling like a singular person who is a professional at a certain function, in this case, creative. I want to actually extend to another part of commerce when it comes to AI, because I think we're talking a lot about the internal efficiencies that we're driving through advancements in technology, in this case, AI. But what I still don't hear people talk about enough in the world of commerce is how this actually changes how consumers shop.
Yeah. Oh man. I'm going to have you come back so like we can unpack that, because like that is a, another hour-long episode when we're talking about like how we're thinking about content and how people are going to shop and the human behavior between, I still want to have a connection with brands that I love, as opposed to have a number of agents kind of running around the internet and shopping for me. But you're absolutely right. Sort of strategically, that is going to change the way that as a brand, we need to think about how we're showing up in the world and who we're showing up for. So maybe I'll get you to come back in not long, and we'll kind of unpack that too, because I promised to get us out at a certain hour. I want to keep us on that promise. So what I would say is, if you're a brand out there and you're curious about how to get more out of AI with the tools you have today, how to get people focused in the right area, it seems like you've developed a really unique point of view. You're working with a number of great brands, so I'd encourage everyone to reach out to Justin. He's a power user, and he's out on a mission to create more power users within the organization. So thanks for joining me today on the pod. Excited to keep the conversation going about changing behaviors in shopping.
Yeah, appreciate it, Brian.
Thanks a lot
for having me. Yeah, thanks.
Cool.